So welcome to Dawn and Kate to our vlog about rural touring. My name's Holly Lombardo and I'm from the National Rural Touring Forum, which represents 30 schemes around the country, all doing really amazing professional performances in many locations, one of which is a village hall, which we are talking about today because it is Village Halls Week 2019. So I'm just going to ask our lovely guests here to introduce themselves and tell us what they do. Dawn, please.
Hi, I'm Dawn Badland and I'm the director at Applause Rural Touring. We cover an area which is quite large. It's all of Kent, East Sussex and West Sussex. And we've got various strands of rural touring work. We do quite a bit of commissioning artists and yeah, we probably have around, getting on for a couple of hundred shows of one description or another every year.
Thank you. Kate.
So I'm Kate Fox. I'm a stand-up poet. I did my first rural touring back in 2009 in a show with two musicians that was a kind of music and poetry show called All Along the Wall. And since then, I have enjoyed touring a show with two other musicians, and now I'm going to do my first solo rural touring this year in the spring in Northumberland and County Durham, and I've just written a poem for Village Halls Week for the National Rural Touring Forum.
And it is a brilliant poem, and you can find that on any social media if you follow the hashtag Village Halls Week or hashtag Rural Touring, and you will find it. It's absolutely amazing. So thank you, Kate, for writing that wonderful poem all about Village Halls, and it does encompass perfectly the kind of breadth of everything that happens, and the fact that you can, you know, a week you need a year or a lifetime to do everything possible in village halls. Dawn, how did you come across rural touring, and how long have you been doing what you do?
Well, I'm really long in the tooth in rural touring years, and was asked by some local authorities in West Kent to start a rural touring scheme. Rural touring's been established for a really long time in England. Kent didn't have any rural touring activity. So we grew from a really small group of districts in Kent to a 3 county-wide rural touring scheme with lots of different strands of work. We go out into village fetes as well as village hall touring, and really for me the network is about finding those alternative spaces where people that aren't near major towns and cities can access something wonderfully cultural, whether that's in a hall or in a pub or in a field. And yeah, it's brilliant, which is why I'm still here doing the same thing but differently.
Yeah, brilliant. And so is that Berkshire? No, that will be Sussex, Kent, and which other county is it?
Well, there's 2 Sussexes, there's West Sussex and East Sussex.
Yeah.
Not particularly fond of being called Sussex. They like to be called by their proper names, which is understandable. And, you know, they are in some ways quite different counties. All of the counties we cover also have a coastline. So, you know, our touring can encompass coastline type villages and communities, as well as the depths of the countryside communities.
Mm-hmm. And Kate, when you started performing and going rurally, which way round did it go? Did you tour rurally first? Are you a country girl, or did you go to cities and towns first and then discover rural touring?
Yeah, at the time where I first discovered rural touring, I was living in Newcastle, and a lot of my gigs were in art centres or on the radio. Yeah, mostly in cities, although I would sometimes get to do a nice village gig somewhere in Northumberland, but I didn't really know what rural touring was. I hadn't heard of it, even though I partly grew up in Cumbria. And I think it was through being part of this music show, folk music and acoustic music show All Along the Wall, that also had 2 poets, and we did that along Hadrian's Wall, there were people from the Highlights Rural Touring Scheme there saying, oh, this would be an amazing show to have in some version on our rural touring schemes. And also, they were excited about having spoken word and poetry as part of the scheme. And actually, for me, I've found that going along consistently, it's quite hard. I mean, I find it all the time. If I say, oh, everybody come to a poetry show, that's very niche. It's really niche. But if you can mix it with something else, then it's not, because the sort of poetry I do is very accessible. So I feel like I've discovered it. I've still only done, I think, really the Highlights rural touring schemes in the north. I'd love to do more and go further around the country. Although my current show is about northern women, so I'm not necessarily sure that the rest of the country is going to be that interested. But yeah, it's a whole lovely new place for performers to tour, and I think a lot of performers aren't aware of it really.
No, quite. I agree with that. And look who's joined us. It's Chris.
Hello.
Hi, Chris. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us what you do in rural touring?
Okay, I'm Chris Bridgman. I'm the Artistic Director of Kirgate Arts, and we run the Kirgate Arts Centre, which is this theatre here in Cockermouth in Cumbria, and the rural touring scheme for West Cumbria, which is called Arts Out West, and that covers that whole long strip from the Solway Firth up near Scotland all the way down through Workington, Whitehaven, the kind of the western bits of the Lake District, so lots of dramatic fells and some lakes, and all the way down into Furness, sticking out into Morecambe Bay at the bottom there. And yeah, be very glad to have Kate Fox come back to Cumbria and come out to the far west if she's up for it.
I would love to.
Whereabouts in Cumbria are you from originally?
I lived in Kirby Stephen for a few years, and loved it there. So some of the Highlights gigs I've done have been not as far west as you are.
Yes.
Some of the nicest gigs you can ever do, really.
Excellent.
Yeah, brilliant. Dawn, I was wondering if you could if there were artists watching this who didn't know about rural touring and wanted to get involved, what would you, well, all of you really, how would you suggest that they start going about it? Dawn, if you want to start.
Well, yeah, I will. But just to sort of build on what Kate was just saying about her touring experience, particularly around poetry, we've just had some amazing feedback, and this very much relates to, you know, artists considering rural touring really, which it was from a promoting host in the community, who said that they had this spoken word poetry gig, and there were people in their audience who would have laughed in the face of poetry previously, but because the work was made in a considerate and bespoke way for that type of venue, were like buying poetry books at the end. And I just, for me, that's like magic. That's just a piece of magic, really. And so things like that, I hope, would encourage artists who just really can't envisage what that kind of touring network would be, to think, well, yes, you know, I can turn up, if I'm lucky enough to get gigs at this established arts venue, I can turn up and not particularly have a relationship with the audience, if there's an audience there, frankly, in some places, or I can look at my work and I can think about who it's for and how I can kind of build a different relationship with a different kind of audience and community. And that's a really special thing for artists, and the feedback from artists is always that that's something that is inspiring for them as well as for audiences.
Yeah, absolutely. But if someone was starting off in their journey, where would you go where should they go first? I mean, Chris, do you wanna or Dawn, Dawn, go for it.
Go on, Chris. Go for it.
No, I was going to say, well, obviously, the NRTF website kind of gives you some overall a picture of the whole scene, I guess. I think all of the schemes have their own systems for receiving suggestions from artists, and certainly we've recently had our website revamped, and you can go on there, look at the Arts Out West page, and there's a link you click through, and there's a very, very simple form where you put in the details of your show and the kind of technical requirements and things like that, and that gets you into the system. And Highlights got a very similar thing. Certainly, kind of drop us an email. I mean, we're bombarded with people, potential artists all the time. So we can't guarantee to speak to everybody, but an introductory email going, this is what we do, we'd be keen to get involved, allows us to have a quick look at the sort of thing that you're offering as an artist, and then get back to you and probably say, yeah, we might be up for this. We've got a lot of, got to make some choices out of everything that's on offer. But then that's the beginning of the conversation. And I think the crucial thing is that for rural touring is flexibility and adaptability, because you're going into spaces that are not fully kitted out arts venues. So basically everything you need technically, you kind of pretty much have to be taking with you on the road, and be prepared to be flexible about how you fit into those very, very varying spaces.
Kate, how about you? How would you, as an artist, how have you find kind of contacting Highlights is the one that you've been involved in, but was it an invitation? They invited you, or did you contact them first?
In the first place, they invited me. But then when I had this solo show called Where There's Muck, There's Bras, about Northern women, I then thought, oh, hang on, this feels like a very suitable show for rural touring. I can totally picture it working with those audiences. And so I then got in touch with Highlights, and it was pretty much like contacting any other venue where you've got a show that you want to put on, saying, this is what it is, here's the blurb. And then they got in touch and said they would put it on their menu. And I suppose that is the bit that's a bit different from other venues, in that it has to be village halls that look and go, oh yeah, we like the look of that, then put you on. So I suppose there's another phase. And what Dawn said about trying to make your show sort of bespoke for rural audiences, that feels really important, at the same time as not going, oh, rural audiences, expect they mainly like James Herriot, because no, rural audiences have this amazingly, actually I think, very diverse set of people with a greatly diverse set of tastes. But I suppose it's about working out, well, is this a show of reasonably broad appeal, and as Chris says, one that can fit in any venue flexibly. But I need to get better, I have to say, as an artist, like at actually, I mean, it's hard when you have a show, you're probably a small scale, be it a theatre company, or you're a band, or you're a spoken word artist. It is so daunting in the first place to be trying to book a tour, trying to get in venues, and I've probably not been as proactive as I could have been. I should have probably emailed Chris ages ago and gone, oh, look, Arts Out West, there's another rural tour, we could increase our tour. And I suppose things that make that easier are always welcomed. And I know you have the National Rural Touring Forum showcase, don't you, every couple of years? And that seems potentially very important and useful, and I have not been yet, but I hope to go this year. So
yes, exactly. It's a good point about the kind of how rural touring schemes work, and the fact that there are menus. So Dawn, do you want to quickly summarise how that works, and how many shows you put on, and how often a year? Because sometimes there's one, sometimes there's two, sometimes there's 4 menu launches. So do you want to tell us?
Yeah, I mean, each rural touring scheme works slightly differently, but broadly rural touring schemes will put together a menu, which is just a selection of work from the responding to what's come in, or lots of schemes go out and see work and recommendations, and that will go across art forms, really. So there'll be a range, and there might be work for young people in that mix as well. And then that selection is sent out to all of the potential promoting communities. once or twice a year, depending on the scheme, and then they come back and put requests in. So there is a bit of this sort of rigmarole of putting a tour together with an extra sort of layer in it, which can be difficult, but putting tours together is always difficult.
Yeah.
So the menu really sort of gives people a range of work, and I think from a schemes point of view, we like to see communities choosing different kinds of things and testing their audiences out, and seeing if something will fly off the back of something else. So there's all of that. You know, it's an important part because it gives promoters ownership of the work, because at the end of the day, they are going to be selling your show if you're an artist on a rural touring program, and they need to believe in it. So our job is to help them do that. So we might have, to be honest, I don't put that together anymore, but we might have, say, 12 in a season to select from, or it might be more than that. And then we might have, say, 70 village hall dates a year from that selection. Wow. You know, I think it's tough for artists and companies. It's a tough world, making work from project to project, whether you're a single artist or part of a company. It's not an easy thing to do.
No.
Yeah, but I would also say that rural touring provides, and you'll have the numbers, Holly, there's a lot of rural touring dates booked across the country a year.
Yeah, there are. Now you've said that, I'm going to have to try and find the numbers.
Sorry.
That's all right. To kind of summarise, how you guys, have you got any kind of special memories or standout memories of working in village halls particularly, but in rural touring? Anyone? Chris, you can go.
Well, yeah, I was just going to sort of loop back a bit on what Kate was saying about taking poetry or spoken words out to audiences that kind of, you know, wouldn't have touched poetry with a barge pole before they actually experienced it. And I think that is the case. Granted what Dawn's been saying about needing to present work in a way that is appealing to the promoters and give them the confidence that they can then sell it to their audiences. But one of the things about rural touring is that the audience is kind of very loyal to the venue. So generally, the promoter will have developed trust in the community over a period of time. So kind of whatever they put on, people will turn up because it's a special event. It's going to, you know, they're not going to get, it's not like they've got stuff on every week. It's kind of a couple of times a year they'll have a show and they will come out and it's a community event. So therefore, if you get so we've had the experience where there's a general kind of national push to develop more dance in rural areas. And certainly we've frequently had the experience of putting on dance shows or dance theatre in village halls and then getting the response of, I wouldn't have come to a dance show, but this was fantastic. And similarly, just had a form back for audience questionnaire form the other day that sort of said, I thought I didn't like jazz, but this was great. Come along to see a gig and kind of had a whole new world open to them. So it's a real opportunity to kind of shift people's views and perceptions and hook them into new art forms.
Yeah, that jazz feedback was from me.
was that
you were away from home then?
Okay, have you got any kind of standout memories from your early rural touring days or even village halls?
Yeah, for me it is so much. I just have lots of dual memories of amazing meals and hospitality before the gig, and often staying over with hosts, and just a sense at those meals of delicious food often and warmth, and then that's carried over into the gigs. They are warm and they're inclusive, and for me as a poet, because I'm a bit sad that people run away screaming from the word poetry, I love it when you then have a whole room of people enjoying this warm, intimate atmosphere in these small venues. Lots of cake, lots of warmth, lots of happy faces of all ages. They are honestly some of my favourite gigs to do, actually.
Yeah, amazing. Dawn, have you got any kind of standout thoughts or kind of what for you, what's the magic? of rural touring?
Yeah, it's just you know, one of our, well, he's passed away now, but one of our oldest promoters, Harry, in his 80s. Just, I remember it was a really long time ago now, but going, and this fantastic, it was a world music event actually, and it was packed, and him just practically crying and going, "This is the best night of my life." It's just, it is incredible, because I just think that the energy that is created when a whole, say 100 people in a community that might not mix normally necessarily comes together, and there's something really energizing happen that they're sharing, just really creates quite a special feeling. So it's really, you know, sitting next to just anyone in an audience that doesn't know I've got anything to do with the show or anything, and just listening to what they've got to say, it's fascinating, really fascinating.
Yeah, amazing. And that is a really brilliant point to end on, I think. So I'm going to say thank you very much to Chris, Kate and Dawn for joining us, Village Halls Week 2019, and thank you very much, and we will speak to you soon, I expect. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Holly. Everybody. Bye.